So there I was, sitting in my office chair, working on the yearly budget for my plant's operations. I'd been working on it for the last 4 days, long hours, trying to have it ready for this upcoming Monday. I had been here last night all the way until 11 p.m. and had to show back up by 6 a.m. this morning. It's now 9 a.m. and I just set up to have somebody else run the daily war room meeting. I need to talk to the lead controller, so I get up and go look from office to office in order to find her. I run into an old co-worker who's now part of corporate HR. I stop in, shake his hand, start making some small talk, and the person closes the door behind me and with a somber voice says, "We have to talk." Hello, hello, hello. I'm Andrew and welcome to the Dad Manual. And this is my attempt as a dad and only a dad to talk about my personal experience with being fired and the steps I used to overcome it. So I'm sitting there and I've got to be honest. I'm flabbergasted. I'm shocked. I'm confused. I don't know what to say. I mean, I never thought this day would come. I'd spent the last 17 and a half years bending over backwards for this company, thinking that my entire purpose was to make other people's lives better. I would go so far as to say everything that happened wrong in the plant was my fault, so that way I could be the fall guy, and we could focus on fixing issues rather than assigning blame. I had no problem being the fall guy. And because things were bad, I was actually working on leaving in a couple of months. I was 2 months away from having everything set up where I could turn in my resignation, retire, and ride off into the sunset. We could throw a party as we had for so many people in the past. I could shake hands, kiss babies, thank everybody for, helping me along the way and move on to the next section of my life. Instead, here I am, I'm being fired. I'm being told we don't want you around anymore. The weight of the world felt like it was crushing on my shoulders. And that's when I did probably the hardest thing, or at least one of the hardest things that I'd ever done in my life. I sat down and I wrote a letter. And in that letter, I decided to thank the company for the opportunity that they gave me to not only take upon the position, but to teach me for the last 17 and a half years. I don't know what triggered me to write that letter. I think I was trying to put my emotions to the side so that way I wouldn't hate this place later. I mean, I don't want to kid you. This was the place I'd spent the last 17 and a half years of my life. These people had seen me grow up. I had been with them. They were my family away from my family. And I had a lot of mixed emotions going on. I just know that I didn't want to have a negative feeling about the place in the future. So I was afforded till 11 a.m. to go ahead and pack. So I hurriedly gathered all my stuff. Quickly got a hold of people that I needed to execute some sort of pass off to. Got a hold of IT and made sure that they had deactivated all of my accounts so that way things would be easier when I was gone, and tried to leave as honorably as I could. It was really hard though, because it felt like the weight of the world was crushing down on my shoulders. I had a shame about me that it was soul crushing. At home, as I walked in the door, my wife could see my face. She just ran over and gave me a hug. That night after dinner, she called a family meeting, and her and the kids, on a vote of 3-0, because I wasn't allowed to vote, decided that Daddy wasn't going to go out and work anymore, and Daddy was certainly not going to get back in the automotive industry. I used to joke around with my friends at work and tell them that what's the worst that could ever happen? They fire me and I live a long and happy life at home in retirement? Yeah, I could hear myself saying those words right now. At first, it was kind of like a vacation. I'm not sure it fully kicked in until my kids went back to school. My wife was at work and it was just me and the cat in the house. And when it's just you and a cat in a 2,200 square foot house with hardwood floors throughout, it's pretty quiet. It's kind of eerily quiet. I mean, pretty soon within the next couple of weeks, I had the finances restructured, many of the projects done, the house was clean, And I found myself on YouTube trying to figure out what people actually do when they retire. After learning that many retirees re-enter the workforce either part-time or via a side hustle, I figured it was time for my own mirror intervention to determine a path forward. During this talk, I came up with 4 different possible avenues that I could take. The first of which was to re-enter the workforce and pick right back up where I left off. I had just had an interview. The problem was, had I done this, I'd be taking what my kids and my wife had just told me, which was the fact that they wanted me to stay home, and I'd be crumpling it on up and I'd be throwing it out the window. I'd be putting myself right back into a situation of working long hours again. It really wasn't an option. The second option that I had was I could go back and I could start to volunteer my time. The problem here was I had no idea where to start, and it wasn't like I was ready to sign up on some mission halfway across the world and no longer see my family. The third thing I could do is I could just sit back and I could wait to die. Binge Netflix forever and become one of them lazy people you see on TVs as a trope for all bad fathers across America. I wasn't interested in any of this, so I figured that I needed to move on. And then the fourth one was I could sit there and I could try to fix myself. And what did fixing myself mean? Well, I had health issues to go ahead and look at and try to fix. But a lot of fixing health issues isn't just physical, it's also mental. And you can do that by attempting to learn. I decided that fixing myself was the best option, and I headed down a path of education. I quickly got an Audible account and became a sponge for all different sorts of topics. Whether or not it be physics, critical thinking, finance, real estate, stocks, self-help, I loved it all. I listened to probably 30 to 35 books in just that first 6 months. This is a pace that I'd never done in my life to date. What I learned, though, is that there were 2 different worlds that existed and 2 different types of people that were in those worlds. The first world was a place where people went and exchanged their time for money. The second world was a place where people went and exchanged their money for time. As far as the types of people, the first type of person was focused on finding a way to convince others to give them money. And then it seems like the second type of person was focused on finding a way to provide others value in their life. This happened time and time again. It seemed to me that every great leader or idol that I studied fell into the group that lived in the world where they exchanged money for time and was one of the people who focused on providing value to others. This doesn't mean that the people like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Gandhi, or Mother Teresa, just because they lived in those worlds, that they weren't hardworking individuals. It just was an observation that seemed to be true. None of them explicitly exchanged their time for money. That wasn't the goal. None of them focused on trying to find a way to convince others to give them money. Instead, they focused on value. And with this observation, I felt I could move on to the next step of my own journey. The last step was for me to conquer my fear of failure. For many people, this means going and interviewing and getting another job. For me, this meant creating my own small business. I had decided to get into rental real estate. I wanted to tackle the affordable housing problems in our area. I mean, any person that's ever read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad knows how profitable real estate is, but also knows how super simple it is. Not. There'll be more videos on that later. It's actually very complex. It's very rewarding, but it is very complex. I hope some of you that involve yourself in real estate got a chuckle. Now, I don't want to joke about it too much, because that'll make it sound scary, and it's really not. It is a little more complex than some of these YouTubers and some of these gurus tend to make out, though. So we will cover many videos in the future about it, and things that I've learned in real estate. Needless to say, this last 3.5 years has gone pretty well. It's gone so well that I can't imagine what life would be like if I was doing something different. And my wife and kids seem to enjoy me being around, so I must be doing something all right. It's funny because I think it comes back to an old Sun Tzu quote. In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. I think you just have to find yours. Well, that about wraps up today's episode. What I want to know, though, is if you've ever had a similar situation happen in your life and how you handled it. Tell me about it in the comments below. And thanks for joining me today. If you haven't already, please give me a thumbs up. It really does help out the YouTube algorithm. And make sure you hit that subscribe button when you're down there. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And until next time, I'm Andrew Sherman. This is the Dad Manual. And always remember, failure isn't bad. Failure to try and learn is. Have a good one.